Okay, this is Martha Creek, marthacreek.com to contact me. That's where my email and phone number is. You're welcome to do that at any time for questions, discussions, dialogue, support, uplift, for even debate, as long as it's civil debate, discussions, disagreements. What I'm presenting here is from my own experience, and it's from my own heartfelt desire to serve those who serve and to get empowered teachings to the whole of the world. So I'm here for that reason. That is my why in being here. And I'm also here out of pure delight in what as holy moments are to me and have meant to me. And each of every one of you represented here participating in this live tonight in the session or after this session as you listen to this or enter into an atmosphere or an arena of holy moments exploration, holy moments understandings, new perspectives or insights on holy moments, then I say glory be, glory hallelujah, and get it any single way that you can. So there'll be a time for questions and answers, and you do not have to have the book. It is based on a book called Holy Moments, and subtitles of books are what often move me. And the subtitle of this book is A Handbook for the Rest of Your Life. And what I read straight away from the book is this. And this is a knowing that I have within me since my earliest memories. And I believe that each and every one of you have a knowing like this within you also, that this is not, this knowing, this calling is not for a select few, that the knowing is in 100% of the human form and not yet do 100% are not apparently not in touch with it. And that we're here tonight, I'm here tonight to be more deeply in touch with this and then to share from how deeply moved I am by it through a spiritual multiplication, how you may then be reignited in your own way. So as I offer this prayerfully, I offer this in devotion and to set the field, this arena that we're in here tonight. And from my heart to yours, a deep bow for your presence and being here and what's possible, what's assured in this holy moment of where two or more are gathered tonight in the name of a holy moment, what absolutely is assured that is part of the outpicturing of that. So for you, Martha, and for you, everybody here, you know in certainty you have so much more to offer. Regardless of how much you've offered, regardless of how much you've done, you know you have so much more to offer. You know it. You have sensed this for some time. You may have sensed this, like me, from your earliest memories. This sacred truth has been bubbling up in your soul. And you have never known quite what to do with it, at least at times. All that is about to change. Some ideas are so powerful that simply becoming aware of them changes our lives forever. Certain ideas are so powerful that simply becoming aware of them changes our lives forever. Holy Moments is such an idea. It is profoundly simple, astonishingly practical, and once we deserve it, once we discover it and see what we deserve, our lives make more sense. It's time to let holy moments show us what is possible, and it's time to explore our soul's potential. So I'd like to start then with, what idea have you had throughout your life? One idea that you heard that changed your life forever. What's one idea that came to you? It could have been something you read. You know, Maya Angelou spoke about, she heard from Eric Butterworth's reading from the Discover the Power Within You, that God loved her. She was a divine being, that God actually loved her, and that changed her life. What is something you've heard or read that changed your life? Put it in the chat, if you will, if you're open to using the chat. Put it right over there in the chat. What's a truth you know or heard, an idea that was so powerful that it changed your life?
Martha, mine
Yeah.
is animals are healers.
Animals are healers. Thank you, Bonnie. Elizabeth says, you're doing it right. You are doing it right. Thoughts become things. So I've heard it said as, what I think about, I will experience. What I think about, how I interpret this, is how I will experience this. Christ in me to Christ as me. That I am a child of God, from Teresa. I am a child of God. God loves me, period. Not if, and, or but. God loves me, period. Love others in such a way that they may still be free. From Anne, all my parts are sacred. All parts of me are holy. All parts of me are sacred. That I'm never alone. You are never alone. God is principle. God expresses as me through divine powers. Marcia, Denny, my choices are important. And that's a part of the context for tonight's chapters too. From Susan, our work is our ministry. Our work, our professions, our calling, our ministry. And work is love made visible. There's nothing that separates me from Diane. There's nothing that separates me from love except my thinking. From D, God is in me. I am not evil. I do not need forgiveness. I am whole. From Verna, I am never alone. From Diane, the power of questioning. What is what I believe true? From Bobby, that God loves me even as I'm different, even if I'm different. And from Julie, I am not my thoughts. So holy, holy moments of realization. Powerful, powerful ideas that changed our lives. So now let's think about a question. So in the opening of the prologue actually of the book talks about one day a young man going to ask an abbot for the answers. So think about who you would go ask, a seer, a sage, a guru, a master teacher of some sort, and what kind of questions you might take in there. The abbot knew people come seeking answers to the same questions. Generally, what should I do with my life? What should I do with my life? Am I wasting my one short life? Have I wasted a part of my one short life? Where can I find meaning? How can I get the most out of life? Questions like this. So I'm going to ask you to write and not share this unless you want to, but for yourself, we're just going to take a minute and answer without trying to answer it right. How do I get the most out of life? Just contemplate that just for a few seconds and then write out an answer. Whatever answer comes, don't try to give a right answer. How do I get the most out of life? How can I get the most out of life? How do I get the most out of life? So notice whatever came through your writing, and then see if between now and our next class, how you can apply that or go toward that or lean into that. So one of you said by being authentic. So we're going to be looking at how to cause and create, how to choose holy moments, how to actually cause and create holy moments. So for Bobby, it's by being authentic. Then how will you do that today, tonight, this week, before we meet again? By listening to God. Dee says by listening, actually taking a time to listen, to meditate, to contemplate, to whatever you call it, that I'm going to put a pause in here and say, before I choose this, I'm going to go to guidance. I'm going to consider guidance and then follow it. Even for me, my holy moments include following guidance even when it doesn't make sense, and following guidance when it's not always popular. And Denny says being love in action. So one of the tenets of the book, the Little Holy Moments book, and it's an important story in the first chapter about this monastery that wasn't doing well, and they went to the abbot to get advice. And he said these people weren't stay, and the monks couldn't stay, and the monks were competing and jealous and all this, and then visitors wouldn't come, and it was in a real decline. It's very much like the ministries today, the churches today, where fewer and fewer people are coming, fewer and fewer people will go, fewer and fewer people will stay or commit, take ownership for it. And the answer from the wisest among them was, the Messiah is among you. Your answer to how to be successful at the monastery, your answer for how to be successful in your family, the answer to the question, how are we going to do this? What's the answer here? Is to live your life as though the Messiah, whatever that means to you, is in your midst. And how would you treat people differently? How would you be with human beings if you knew one is the Messiah. You don't know which one, but you know one is. How would that change the way you are with human beings? And treat every person you meet accordingly for our sake. So, sensing then that we have more to offer, we know it deeply, we've known it a long time, and we still have thoughts like, there's more to life than this. There must be more to life than this. I have so much more to offer. Do I really have a lot to offer? Something is missing. Things are not right yet. These are part of our human malfunctions. We think something is wrong. We think there's something that needs to be fixed, including us. So we view these things then as though they're problems, and then we're stuck in it instead of like, we won't go on because we're bound up in these false notions. So one of the tenets from the book is to know that we are not a malfunction. I am not a malfunction. I am not malfunctioning. Nothing could be further than the truth than to believe this. So these longings that we have are amazing signs that our whole person is calling us forward. The wholeness in us that knows that we're something greater than this is actually trying to break out of a frozen, concreted over place in us, an old BS, an old belief system. So when you sense that something is missing, that you must be more, there must be more to life than this, or that you have so much more to offer, know that your intuition is very clear about this and very sharp about it. And then start to tune into how they may be leading you. So anybody here have cravings? Anybody ever had cravings or had to deal with cravings? Everybody I know to some degree. Yep. So, and these cravings are insatiable. Have you noticed? Like we can eat and eat and eat. And it's like, and it still didn't meet that part of our need. It didn't meet the part that was craving. We also try to fill these cravings with trivial activities, meaningless things, things that really don't make our tail wag, mindless things, distracting things, certainly addictions. And all of that won't ever meet this insatiable need, this insatiable craving we have to have more meaning in our life. Instead, they usually leave us more dissatisfied, ashamed, guilty, exhausted, hungrier than ever, still looking for something. And the cravings testify that in our heart, this is proof that we're created for something way more than this. And none of this substance, any of this substance, relationships, work, professions, any of it is ever going to meet this need in us for actual meaning and care of our own soul. And a story was given about Michelangelo. So anybody that doesn't know who Michelangelo is or what he was able to produce in his life, that said at the end of his life, and I quote, "I regret that I have done so little for my eternal soul, and that I am but beginning to learn the alphabet of my craft. I'm a beginner." He was 88 years old and indisputably a genius who had lived a life of astonishing world accomplishment and was filled with regret. And his regret was the care of his own soul. So the advantage we have over Michelangelo is we still have time. At least today, at least right now, we still have time to do something about this, that we can live without regret. So it is a call then for us to begin today. So see if you can land on that part of you that says, you know, Martha's just crazy enough that she could be onto something. I'm actually going to start this today, that I'm going to see what is possible today if I start such a thing as this of living from what is in me, what can I do here? What am I actually about? What brings me meaning? And I'm going to cause and create this and follow the tenets of this to see what is possible here. So then holy moments, and our work in holy moments is here to draw out our potential. To draw out our potential. And to realize that what we're hungry for, knowing that we're hungry for something, is wisdom. The wisdom to know I am actually hungry, and I'm hungry for something besides what I've been eating. And I'm hungry for something besides what I've been doing. So the great hunger, then this holy moments is addressing this great hunger, capital G, great hunger, or the hunger for meaning, actual meaning. So there's a story about Ernest Hemingway, who's living in Paris, quite a life, a profound, prolific, extraordinary writer. He was young and restless, it says, and wrote about his yearnings. And this was his reflection that he wrote about, this nagging hunger that he could not satisfy. And quoting him, he said, "My wife and I had a lavish, wonderful meal. And when we had finished, and there was no question of hunger anymore, the feeling was still there." Even though the hunger had been met lavishly, excessively even, the hunger, the feeling was still there. It was there when we came home to a comfortable bed, a beautiful place. It was there even after we had gone to bed and made love. It was still there. When I woke up with the windows open and the moonlight on the rooftops of Paris, it was still there. I put my face away from the moonlight into the shadows. I could not sleep. I lay awake thinking about it. My wife could sleep sweetly. I could notice the moonlight on her face, how much I loved her. And it was still there. Can you relate to this? Can you relate to the hunger within you that would not be satisfied? At least for long. So I'll type this in the chat in a minute so you can see it in print, or you're welcome to write it down so you have it in your own handwriting, and I'll go slow. So I'm encouraging you to write this and then refer to it throughout the week until we meet again. Some moments are holy. Some moments are holy. Some moments are unholy. Some moments are unholy. And my choice will guide a moment in either direction. And my choice will guide a moment in either direction. So some moments are holy. I'm repeating now. Some moments are holy. Some moments are unholy. And my choice will guide a moment in either direction. What's your response to this? How does this land on you, or how does this hit you? And then take a minute to reflect on if you were called upon, what would be an example of a holy moment that you've experienced? We've not even defined yet what it is. So how would you demonstrate? What's an example of what you would describe in your own life as a holy moment? Things are neither good or bad. Thinking makes it so. I want to reflect on what is meant by choice, my perspective, my willingness, my surrender. Yes, Tiffany. Reflect on that, honey. My choice. Sounds like all three. Some moments are holy, some are unholy. My choice can guide a moment in either direction. This is our moment. The moment when we realize that despite what our life has been up until now, regardless of what it's been up until now, regardless of anything that we've done in the past or didn't do in the past, what actually matters most is what we do next. What I do next. What I'm going to do in this interaction. What I'm going to do in this transaction holds all the power of the universe. We know scientifically, psychologically, physically, that meaning is crucial. Having meaning in our life is crucial to our health, our mental health, our psychological health, our physical health. Having meaning in our life. And that we cannot thrive as human beings without it. And that we cannot live a meaningful life by filling our life with trivial things, meaningless things, or meaningless activities. So living now, committing to a life of holy moments solves the meaninglessness of our lives, can be the solution for that. So there is a moment at the end of each day when most of us put our head down on a pillow. The body's tired to some degree. Our minds can relax a little bit, and our thinking mind or fear mind, our ego, whatever you would call that, can let go. This is a solitary moment. And if we listen carefully in that moment, we will discover where we stand. Where we stand with God or Creator or whatever your word for higher power is. In that solitary moment, when we lay our head on the pillow and some of the other can let go, where we stand with God, where we stand with the people we love, where we stand with the important relationships in our lives, and where we stand with all the parts of ourselves. This moment does not lie. This moment reveals the meaning or the meaninglessness of our lives. The simple truth that some moments are holy, some moments are unholy, and our choice can guide the moment in either direction reveals the profound meaning that every one of us contain, a miracle-making quality that we contain. So what is a holy moment? How would you describe it? So we've established so far that our ability to guide the moment toward what is holy, more holy, demonstrates that each and every human being, each and every act of our human beingness contains profound meaning. Every single action, every single transaction, every single interaction contains a profound meaning for my life. So, how our choices can guide a moment. So this is the essence of a collaboration with God, a conspiracy with the universe to create and cause holy moments. So then we question then, what is a holy moment? It's defined in the text as this, and I'll go slow in case you want to write it down, or if you've got the book, it's in page 23. A holy moment is a single moment in which you open yourself to God. A holy moment is a single moment in which you open yourself to God or guidance or higher power or whatever word you can use there if you have allergies to God. Next, you make yourself available to God. You make yourself available. Next, you set aside personal preference. Sound easy? I set aside personal preference. Like, no. I set aside self-interest. What's in it for me? I'm not coming back to this class next week. And for one holy moment, I do what I prayerfully believe God is calling me to do. So a holy moment is a single moment in which I open myself to God or higher power, whatever you call it, make myself available to that. 3, set aside my personal preference. Set aside my self-interest. And finally, for one moment, do what I prayerfully believe God is calling me to do. So, tiny collaborations with God. Giant steps toward meaning and developing some meaning in our lives. Now, the great news about this is it's immediately it can be implemented immediately. No waiting till next week. No waiting till you get the book. Like, this can be done now. We are equipped right now for a holy moment to create and collaborate with God to cause and create holy moments. And then there is no limit. The other great news is there's no limits. There's no shortage on holy moments. And if all of you have 100, there's no shortage for the rest of us. So plenty of holy moments to go around. And maybe Tiffany, this responds, honey, to your comment about it. And this is out of the text, and it was helpful to me too, and I started. If I could give only one piece of advice, this is from the author, it would be this: make choices that are easy to live with. Make choices that are easier to live with. Make choices you can look back on longingly with less regret. Life is choices. We're constantly making them. And how wise are we choosing? How wise are we choosing? We're not born great decision makers. Have you noticed? We're not born as a great decision maker. It's something that has to be learned. It has to be learned to make better decisions, to make better choices. And there was an idea put forth in the book about when you have a decision to make, and particularly if it seems if it's got you kind of boogered up, to imagine consulting your future self. So I'm going to bring my future self in on this decision. So imagine yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. That would be too far for some of us. It's, bumping 70 and 80. So 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now. And imagine you're looking back on this moment. What would your future self encourage you to do? What would a wiser self suggest you do? And then there's a story here. Let's pause here for a minute before I get into the story. Some of you have already been into holy moments. You've shared them. And I am way into it myself. So any example of a holy moment, anything you want to share, what a holy moment was for you, how you made a choice, how you made a better choice, anything you've heard so far, let me just open it up a minute. Anybody want to speak about holy moments, something you've read, experienced? Just open up the floor to bring it open here. Carol.
I could come up with many beautiful, profound things, but I want to share so I can listen to myself and remember this from an hour ago or so. driving in the car with my husband in his truck because he wanted and he just got it fixed. And he hasn't been driving much for a long time. And coming back, kind of hurrying home. And he went over a curb, like the corner of a curb. It was the third time he'd done it. And I didn't say anything. And suddenly all these things came to me about, reasons for he's got, steel in his neck or what, it's not steel, but whatever, hardware, he can't turn quite enough, whatever. All of the reasons that it could have happened, and I didn't need to make some sarcastic comment about his driving. And in this context, I'm in tears because it was a holy moment.
And the group says, amen. Great example, Carol. Anybody else? Some of you are putting it. Rich, you and Barb want to share about yours? Rich shared one with me a little bit ago. If you want to pass, you can, honey, but if you feel like you want to share, do it. Will you hit unmute, honey, so we can hear you?
There it is.
There.
Yeah,
That's it. You're all set. Yep.
maybe there's something about automobiles that give plenty of us an opportunity to have holy moments.
Amen.
Since we've talked and some reading that I've done about holy moments, one of the things that I have consciously done is not think or say inappropriate things to people who cut me off or annoy me or do whatever they do. And I even got to the point where I had a name for those people that I used so much when my children were young that they said, how do you know his name is? And then I say that name, I don't want to use it because there might be a Lewis in the group here somewhere. But that's something that I have been trying to be more aware of.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich. When I first introduced this in one of my first talks, one of the men said, are you kidding me? Like, do you mean that we've got to choose and somebody cutting me off as a holy moment? And I said, we don't have to do anything, but that's the invitation here. Like, I'm going to keep doing my patterned way, all the while I claim I don't want violence in the world. All the while I claim I want there to be more violence in the world. In that very interaction of somebody cutting me off, I've just put more violence into the world. If I don't make a choice to go the other direction for this. So great example. Rich also shared with me that he struck up a conversation with somebody and that he ended up being somebody that he had been a teacher 4 years ago. His brother was in his presence. One of his former students was in his presence, his brother. So they called up and got the guy on the phone. So they got to have a reunion, so to speak, like something that would not have been possible. I got in this restaurant I was in, this woman came over to me and said, do you remember me from last fall? And I said, I actually do. And I remembered her name and I told her what her name was. And she couldn't believe that I remembered her or her name. And she had shared with me that she had been really addicted to drugs and alcohol and that she was working hard to sober herself up. And she was wanting to see her kids who had been taken from her as a result of this at Christmas. And she was really afraid that she wouldn't get to see them. And whatever presence I had with her, whatever I said to her, she said gave her hope to just stay the course, stay this course, stay your program, stay sober, don't use, get to meetings, do whatever you can, and then surrender whether you'll get to see your kids or not. And she ended up getting to see her kids, and they were going to be coming back at spring break. And she was real happy about that and what she had done. So she considered meeting me a holy moment, that some word of inspiration came to her, some stamina that she needed to stay the program, and some reminder that to go ahead and surrender to the outcome because she had no control over that. And I was happy to see her again that day. And I went down there to give her the Holy Moments book and Martha Creek's 2 books. One day I just dropped off a package for her at that restaurant where she works. And I had another holy moment there in the lobby because somebody was there in a wheelchair and she was there to celebrate her birthday. And I got to connect with her at a shockingly deep level. Somebody I've never seen before and likely would ever see again, that said something about me, reminded her of her own divinity, and that she considered it was a gift that we were in that entryway of that restaurant at exactly the same time. So be open and as intentional as you can be. Thank you for sharing, those of you that put your sharings in the chat too. I also want to speak about, this story was so powerful for me about this man working with these men in these prisons. And this one particular man was in prison that this author was working with, that said on one occasion, the only time in his life he had ever done anything like this, he went with his other young friends to rob a store. And he never intended to shoot anybody. He bought a gun and never intended to use the gun. He bought a gun that he never intended to use. They went in for the robbery. He put the gun on the counter during the robbery, and the gun went off. Someone was killed, and he had spent 40 years in prison as a result of something he never intended to do. So he's lived with regret. He was 19 years old, and he's 62 now. 43 years locked in a cage. And he described it that some days, he says, he can taste the regret. He could taste the regret. Other days, he says, I will almost make it through one whole day. And then the smallest damn reminder will trigger it again. And the memory triggers the regret. That kind of regret, even after all these years, is like being punched in the stomach. And as he says, I ask myself over and over and over, why? Why? So many of you have heard me say, we've worked together for years, that whys like that are a portal to hell. Those whys don't have an answer to them. And he says in his contemplations, he goes over and over and over it again. Like, why? Because I didn't need the money. I didn't need the money. I didn't need to rob a store. I had money. I didn't need money. We were just kids, just stupid young kids in a grown-up world. And how much he wishes he could go back and change one moment, just one moment out of 60 some years of living. And how changing that one decision would have and could have changed his whole life. How his whole life would have been different with a different choice in that moment. And he says, I wish I could go back and tell that boy just stay home tonight. Stay home tonight. And I can't now. So this is an example of deep regret. And I had an example of it, of witnessing this man working with other men in prison too. And he argued, this man that was the prisoner argued that he couldn't control anger. Like, you don't understand, I can't control anger. And this facilitator, this man said, I'll give you, if you'll attempt to control anger for 1 minute, 60 seconds, and we'll set a timer, I'll give you $100. And he said, I'm going to call you every name in the book. I'm going to get in your face. I'm going to shame you, guilt you. I'm going to do everything I can to get you to react angrily. And if you can manage to go 1 minute and not react angrily, you'll get $100. And he set a timer and he started calling him names, slandering him, hate, blame, shame, guilt, everything under the sun. And the prisoner just sat there. He folded his arms. He didn't respond. The timer went off and the man gave him $100 bill. And the prisoner started to cry. He started to sob. I couldn't believe it. He was a big burly, kind of tattooed, bad mama jamma. He started to sob. And he said, I wish I would have known that I had this power of choice X amount of years ago, because I wouldn't have killed a man. I wouldn't have killed a man if I knew that I had any choice in it. So I wish I would have known that I had some choice back there. So sometimes there's choice. And all of our choices have some kind of consequence, either an unintended consequence, even though we know this. And it's easy, if we're not careful, to throw this indisputable truth aside and deny the consequences of these, our less holy moments or our unholy moments. And I'm thinking about like what I wanted to convey to Hadlin, for example, like that her choices have consequences. And I notice that I have more emphasis often on the consequences of poor choices instead of uplifting the powerful and positive consequence of wise choices. So that's a part of my new practice, that I'm going to be speaking as much about the power and the possibility of wise choices as I am the consequences of poor choices. And I can tell you that is a light years ahead of my old patterned way. So think about then, as we describe holy, unholy. Holy moments are choices that are easier to live with. Easier to live with, easy to live with. Maybe not be easy in the moment, like Rich spoke about. Like, it's not easy in the moment to let that knucklehead cut me off and not call him a name or two, or her a name or two. But my choice was easier to live with. Like, there was some sense of pride that I was able to do that. Like Carol demonstrated tonight, how touched she was that she didn't have to offer an opinion, an evaluation, a judgment, a criticism about somebody that hasn't driven in a very long time out in his truck, hitting a curb, driving over a curb. So see for yourselves. So it's time to open the floodgates for holy moments, to see what we can do, and to look at the things hardest for us to live with. Some of these things you may have regrets for. The choices that are harder to live with, that we have regrets for, not to let them take over, to do whatever we can to right that, to pay it forward, to forgive ourselves, to do whatever we can, not to let that have power over us. And that we start here today with where we are today, regardless of the choices we made in the past or what it led to, the consequences of that. So I'd love you to say this out loud. Write it down. My choice has power. My choice has power. My choices have power. Choice has power. My choice has power. My choices have power. And get a sense of how it feels as you say it or as you write it. And now, this last few minutes, contemplate, maybe take into your meditation this week. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? It only takes a handful of holy moments to flood your soul. To flood your soul with something new, with a different way, a new way of being, a new vision, a new life. So in this time of Lent, even like coming up into Easter, like our own transfiguration. Remember that story? Like there was a new look, that he had a new look, a new light, a new appearance, something more beautiful, something like more of a spiritual state. So each holy moment, a mini transfiguration of some sort. At least, let's see what's possible. God, higher power, guidance is one choice away. One holy moment to shift the momentum of our life or the momentum of a direction. So don't let your past rob you of your future. You are more than the worst thing that has ever happened to you. You are more than the worst thing you have ever done.
Yes.
God is never more than one choice away.
Rob.
Guidance, God, whatever you call it. And it only takes one holy moment to shift the momentum of my life. Encourage you to speak something like that out loud. It only takes one moment, one holy moment. Okay, it's time to quit. Some of you can go, some of you can stay, and I'll stay and entertain comments, questions, dialogue, anything you want to bring forth here. Please come back next week, and you're welcome to invite anybody that wants to come to be here, be a part of it. Just send them the Zoom link, over and encourage them to come, even 3 people, 3 or 4 people, if you can. Thank you for being here. If at any time you want to share without being recorded, just ask me to stop the recording and I will.
Thank you,
I'm gonna
Martha.
take the
I'm gonna take the books to Unity Palo Alto this Sunday, Martha, and chat you up, because this is fabulous. I love this one. This is wonderful. So I'm trying to make holy moments when I'm working on not judging this year. So when I can accept instead of judge, there we go, holy moment.
When I can accept, not judge. Holy moment. Great example, honey. And yes, it's WORK.
Ah,
Anybody else?
Thank you, Martha.
Welcome.
Thanks to everybody for
Glad you're
being here with me. Love y'all.
Sandy shared a moment. It says a holy moment happened today when I was in the middle of busyness and stopped, put my things down, and listened with undivided attention to a silly story by a student, despite my long to-do list. Then again, when I said yes, when a class asked to stop and play a game. And again, when I chose to exclude certain students from certain paper assignments to discuss their projects with them instead. Powerful examples, honey. Thank you. Imagine, honey, the impact on those students. That they'll be somewhere down the road talking about the teacher who could, or the teacher who did. Maybe the only undivided attention they've ever had. Bless it. Anybody else? Mary Jane, glad you made in. Hi, Dee, glad you're here. Karen, didn't get a chance to call y'all's names at the beginning. We'd already started, so glad to see you all here. Anything from the text you want to question, or so much more to it? That was just the first part of that little book.
I put a big this next to this statement where it says, if someone had an incredible power and used it for evil, that would be a horrible thing. But what about if someone has an incredible power and didn't use it for good? That's tragic.
Well, think
Like-
about it. Like what's
Yeah, it's
worse?
like, give me a kick in the butt here. I got stuff to do.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
The rest of us. I look forward to hearing from it too. Like, you don't have to wait to email me, marthacreek@gmail.com, and tell me about your moments or how you're living them out or something. Just continue to do this. And, you know, that's part of one of the concepts that I'll put forth in one of the weeks coming up is this notion, I mentioned it tonight, spiritual multiplication, like how this catches and how we'll be inspired by one another, already are inspired by one another. And just what we've read already or heard tonight. Okay. You're sincerely welcome to invite others. Love you, honey. Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you,
Uh,
Martha.
Thanks.
Barb and Rich, glad you're here, honey.
Us too. See you.
Sorry
Bye,
we were
Martha
late.
G.
In Peru. Hi, Shaz. Glad you made it in, honey.
I guess it's time to begin, huh?
It's time to begin. Sure, it's time to begin. Thank you for that, honey. Yep. Mhm.